welcome to the Man United stream. Hope you're doing well. It's Monday morning, and yes, we've had a weekend of football where Man United have not been involved. How lonely do we feel as Man United fans? Seriously, it's not nice. United not being involved in all competitions. And this is why it's so important that this season we make sure we qualify for the Champions League and get things going. And of course, we get the right players over the summer and of course make the right decision when it comes to a new manager. Yes, it is hotting up, guys. The manager talk is hotting up. We're going to be bringing you news about a certain top manager in the Premier League that has been ruled out by the Man United board. What are they talking about? Why are they ruling managers out so early on? Why is this not being decided upon at a later stage? But first of all, let's talk about the big news. The big news that we're starting to get now. Rumours, reports coming out of very unlikely sources about Bruno Fernandes not going to stay at the end of the season. He's looking to leave. That's what we're hearing. But look, this isn't a surprise to me, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who watches this show on a regular basis, because I've been telling you for some time. I've been saying it, guys. This is a problem. This is a problem because Bruno Fernandes, everything he's saying is saying, look, I want to be out. I want to be out. I want to leave. I want to leave. Even before the sacking of Ruben Amorim, he wanted to leave. And this is where I was really worried, because I was thinking, do you know what? I don't want to see our best player leave. But the problem is we have got no other option. We've got no other option but to let him leave now, because who else is going to keep him? Who's going to keep him at the club? I mean, a new manager? Carrick? If Carrick isn't going to get the job, what happens then? Then, of course, Bruno's going to think, well, look, I've got some kind of a rapport with Michael Carrick, but let me say it quite clear. If anyone else comes in, I'm not going to waste my time in my time of his career. At his time, he's going to be thinking, there's no point. There's no point just now kind of rebuilding a new relationship with a new manager. I might as well just leave. And then, of course, comes the problem with not winning trophies. We've got an issue. We have got an issue. How long does Bruno Fernandes stick around and wait to see whether United start winning and winning big? There's no guarantee of that. And I think what's gone on last week with Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos and everything else, I think that's going to be on the back of every player's mind. Every player is going to be sat there thinking, is this club heading in the right direction? So this is why there's huge question marks, not just over Bruno Fernandes, but a few other players that might be thinking, right, I think the tide is not turning. The tide's not going to turn anytime soon. We might as well jump ship now. We might as well get out and start playing football for another club where we can actually win something. Now, one player that we've consistently said has got options is Bruno Fernandes. From our team, if we're being very honest, if we look throughout our squad, one of the players that will probably get the most clubs after him if he went up for sale is Bruno Fernandes. Without a doubt, every club would love a Bruno Fernandes. Every club. And managers all love him, all across Europe, all across the world. Whenever you speak to managers and they talk about Bruno Fernandes, they all are falling head over heels for him, because they know what he offers to clubs around the world. Teams. Imagine him being in a Real Madrid or a PSG, although PSG have got some really good midfielders right now, but in Vitinha and Neves and all the rest. But anyways, this guy's up there. He's up there, so him leaving is a huge problem for United. Huge problem. But I'm hearing from reliable sources, but look, this is really going to be a touch and go situation. It's going to take a lot of convincing to keep Bruno Fernandes at the club. He has already had offers from the Saudi League, clubs out there, and he was on the verge of leaving in the summer, but then he left it up to the club, and the club turned around and said, well, we don't really want you, but it's up to you. I think that again was not a good move from the club. Either they should have made that decision and said, we actually love you, Bruno, we want you to stay, and there's no way we're going to sell you. They should have at least come and said that, but they didn't. And Bruno Fernandes, of course, in an interview he gave to Portugal press before an international game, he said, look, I was playing well, I was happy at United, and then come the summer, the board got an offer, and they then said, well, yeah, we'll leave it up to Bruno. We'll leave it up to you. And he actually used the words they didn't have the balls. They didn't have the guts to decide what to do with me. They knew they wanted to sell me, but they didn't have the guts to say that because they knew the backlash from the crowd, the fans, would be enormous. Even those who criticise Bruno Fernandes can accept that without Bruno Fernandes in our team, it's completely different. We play a different type of football, and we haven't got a player like Bruno Fernandes right now that can step in. Kobe Mainoo, he's nowhere near like Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes is one of a kind, and we need to hold on to him. Can we do that? I'm really worried right now. I'm really worried with the noises coming out, and I've been saying it for some time. I was saying it for some time. Look, guys, Bruno Fernandes, if you've been watching our show, I mean, a couple of months ago, I started saying, look, I'm worried about Bruno Fernandes because what I'm hearing from Bruno Fernandes isn't good news. This is like a final goodbye. Yes, he's not come out like Casemiro and said, I'm leaving, thank you very much, and off you go. I'm gonna. This is my last season. But I just get this feeling that the noise is now coming out of United. I just feel like he's gonna be like, look, this project is taking too long. He was convinced to stay by Ruben Amorim for another season. He said it in that interview. Look, I want to experience playing for another club. I want to go and play in maybe La Liga or maybe in another league and win things. That's what he said. Those are his intentions. Why are we all kind of putting our heads in the sand and thinking he's not going to leave? Of course he's going to leave if he gets the opportunity, and clubs are circling United because they know there's instability at United right now. And if I was the board, I would try and lock down a manager as quick as possible, and then that manager can come in, if it's not Carrick, by the way, but we'll discuss that in a minute. If it's not Carrick, we get a new manager in who can come in before the season ends, a couple of weeks before, a month before. It's really difficult, I know, because most fans will be saying, Travis, what are you on about? Surely you wait till the end of the season and you wait till you wait and see what Carrick does. But for me, I think it might be too late by then, because the players are going to jet off immediately. They're going to jet off to the international teams and go and play in the World Cup, and they're not going to be around. They're not going to be around to discuss anything with a potentially new manager coming in. So if they've got no rapport with the new manager, they might just say, right, okay, I don't want to go back to United. I don't want to go back. If an offer arrives that they are happy with and they want to take, like say for instance, Bruno gets a massive payday with the Saudi League. Although the Saudi League is a bit tricky right now, because what we're hearing from Saudi is like they don't want to put any money down on huge players anymore. Now they've realised that look, it's not as easy as it seems. So to build a league and make a success of it, it's not as easy as everyone thought, and Saudi have started struggling because they've realised it's not just simply about putting the money down, it's also about having the traction, the crowds, the people interested in watching. They haven't got the TV contracts. No one really wants to watch the Saudi teams play because yes, you've got the highlight players of Ronaldo and Benzema and Sadio Mane and so forth, but really, they've not got enough pull for everyone to sit down and watch an entire game of Saudi teams. People just get bored. They don't want to be watching, and there's no real competition there either. There's only a couple of teams that are really good, and the rest are, mediocre teams, to say the least. But anyway, coming back to United, coming back to the Bruno situation, I can see him leaving, especially if a team like one of the big European teams come in for him, especially ones that are winning, ones that can offer him trophies and titles. That's what he's after. Come on. And do we begrudge him for that? Do we sit here and say, actually, Bruno, you can't leave because, we're Man United? Like, come on. Like, let's be honest. The guy's given blood, sweat and tears to United. and we still criticize him. We still haven't given him the legendary title of like, this guy's an icon for this club. Although he's in this shit time, in this crap team, he's been one of the shining stars of the team. Throughout his time at United, he's been one player consistently that we can say has been performing for United. And if he was surrounded by a decent bunch of players, a decent team, I think we would have been talking about titles left, right and centre. Really. We've been inconsistent under the Glazers and with Ineos as well. It's been a complete shit show. We thought Ineos was going to come in and stabilise everything, but they've just turned it into even further of a shit show. And now the question marks are, well, look, what are these players who've been here long term thinking? They're probably thinking, well, actually, nothing is changing. We've given them a couple of years. They've not changed anything. Everything's still the same. In fact, some might argue that it's worse than when the Glazers were in charge. At least the Glazers left everything to everybody else to do and didn't really interfere. But now we've got owners who feel like they know what they're doing, or think like they know what they're doing. They're interfering with everything, but they don't have a bloody clue. They don't have a clue. And from the decisions that they've made, from the actions that they've taken, Ineos we're talking about here, and Jim Ratcliffe, we can see that they don't have a bloody clue on what they're doing with a giant of a club like Man United. Let me go to the chat this morning, because I wanted to kind of hear from you guys about Bruno Fernandes, what you think of him, what you're not. I mean, some people, some fans, genuinely are not too concerned. They're like, look, let's sell him. Let's get some money out of it. Let's get the 100 mil or whatever it is out of the Bruno Fernandes deal and go and spend that, because otherwise we won't have money to spend. And that's what Ineos are planning, and that's what I feel like they are going to do, because they know they haven't got the funds to go out there and really make a difference in the summer transfer market unless they make some kind of money on players going out. So they might look at Bruno Fernandes and think he's going to be the one who's going to give them all that money, so we might as well sell him and take that money and go and strengthen maybe the midfield in bringing maybe an Anderson or somebody else like a Blaber. But I just do not trust this board. I do not trust the people at United right now to do that. I do not trust them to sell Bruno Fernandes and then replace him with like for like, or bringing in another world-class midfielder. I just don't trust them. I just feel like they're going to take that money and they might just pocket it, or they might just try and save some money. So they might say, oh, we got 100 mil, but I tell you what, we'll go and spend about 30-40 mil on a player and say, oh, that's the replacement for Bruno Fernandes, and keep the rest for a rainy day or something. Does not work. If you see and look around the world of football, money has to be invested into bringing these top players, and that's, unfortunately, that's the way you get success. Yeah, you might get lucky and you might get a few players from the academy, or you might inherit, or you might buy a couple of young players that turn into complete beasts. But unfortunately, we're not at that stage. We haven't got that time either. We haven't got that time. We need success. We've been waiting a long time to get into the Champions League, get back to our position of formidable football, and we're not playing that anymore. We're not with Carrick. We're going to talk about actually the manager in a minute. That's really important news coming out in terms of the manager situation as well. But before we do that, let me go to the chat. Let me log in and see what you guys are saying this morning. We've not had enough football, so it's been really quiet, hasn't it? It's been quiet. We've been watching other teams play, and it's not always enjoyable. You want United to be involved. Steph, welcome. I hope you're doing well. Bruno ain't leaving, especially if we got Champions League like we should have done last season. Losing Europa to Spurs was appalling. Yeah, I think we could have that as our bargaining chip when it comes to Bruno Fernandes and the end of the season. If we could just qualify, and this is why I keep saying Champions League is the most important thing ever right now. This season has to be Champions League or nothing, because it's gonna make that difference. It's gonna make that difference. And if we don't qualify for Champions League, we might as well kiss goodbye in the next couple of years any progression, because the gap between the top 4-5 teams and the rest of the league is opening up and wider and wider and wider. And you can see just in the transfer market in the summer, the teams that qualified for Champions League and had Champions League runs, they spent huge amounts. They threw money. Look at Liverpool. They threw money at players and transfers, that's the difference, because they can afford to do that, because they've got the money, they've got the commercial revenue coming through. United are going backwards. That's why if we qualify for Champions League, it will stop that rot. And yes, I agree with you. It will be a bargaining chip to keep Bruno Fernandes here. We can say, look, we're going in the right direction. We've qualified for Champions League. You are going to be the beating heart of our team next season. So we want you to stay. And I think that's one of the bargaining chips. The other one will be whether we keep Michael Carrick or not. We know he's got a really good relationship with Michael Carrick, Bruno has. So if Carrick stays on, that's another plus point and another bargaining chip, I believe, in terms of keeping Bruno Fernandes where he is. We can say to Bruno Fernandes, look, Carrick is here, you get on with him, he trusts you, you've got a really good relationship, you've got Champions League football, please do not leave. But then it's a question of whether Bruno actually believes that we're going in the right direction, whether this is just a minor turnaround and we're going to still be shit next season, or things are still not going to be good because he knows that the ownership, the people behind, are still going to interfere and not really allow the club to grow. And another big thing is, Steph, is that yes, players want Champions League, yes, players want a good manager. But the other factor that we kind of, as fans, ignore is the factor that they want, the players who are at United, they want to see United go out there and build a better team, go and bring in better players in other positions. So Bruno Fernandes will be watching very carefully and looking at what United do in the summer transfer market. Will they be going out there and bringing in players that will make a difference? Will they go out there and bring in players that will actually cook with this team? Bruno Fernandes is probably looking around thinking, right, okay, the team's good. We've brought in Mbeumo, we've brought in Kuna, and we've brought in Sesko, and look what that's done to the team. But we still need a few more players to make it a better squad. We need a better squad. We need players available on the bench as well. And he's probably going to be looking at that. And that's going to be another thing that he's going to be looking at before he decides what to do. If United go out there and bring in the top players from Europe, bring in the likes of Anderson or Wharton or young, hungry players, I'm sure Bruno's going to be thinking, right, okay, do you know what? This team's going in the right direction and I want to be part of this project. I want to be, because we're going to win. We're going to win. But if he's been offered something else from another major club that's already winning trophies in the Champions League, going far into the Champions League, into the semi-finals, finals on a regular basis, of course, then he's going to think, well, I want to be there. I want to be at that stage. I want to be involved in them kind of games. At a certain stage in a player's career, the money doesn't make a difference. Money doesn't. Everything else gets sidelined. What they really care about is winning trophies. So when they do retire, they can turn around and say, I won this. You see it right now with the ex-United players. They go off the winnings. They go off the trophies. When you sit down, you hear Rio Ferdinand or Scholes or Giggsy or Beckhams and whatnot. They talk about what they've got in their war chest. They're like, look, this is what we've got. So when they're talking, everyone listens. And then everyone takes a piss out of Jamie Carragher for not having anything, right? Everyone takes a piss because of that. And you can really walk tall. You can sit there and say whatever you want to say because you've got the proof behind you in all those trophies. And the same thing with Bruno Fernandes. Every player wants to be winning trophies and wants to end their career knowing that they've won the very best competitions. Unfortunately, I think people around Bruno Fernandes will be probably telling him, mate, you are simply wasting your talents right now. You're wasting your talents at a club where even Sir Jim Ratcliffe didn't really want him. He said he was shit. Before he bought United, he made a statement about Bruno Fernandes being shit and saying, he's not the player that I want at the club. Anyway, I mean, obviously he's kept him here, but yeah. I see, welcome to the channel, mate. Hope you're doing well. Bruno ain't getting younger. Ineos model means they have to sell on good value, but these idiots will never replace him. Yeah, I think, look, if we sell him, if we do end up selling him, I think absolutely I cannot I cannot see anybody that they're going to replace him with, and I'll say, right, okay, that's a good move. I really cannot. But then at the same time, that's what I'm scared about. I'm scared that it's not that they're going to actively sell him, but they're not actively going to hold on to him either. They're not actively going to go and say, look, we want you, Bruno, do not leave. I think they're going to sit back and watch whilst Bruno makes that final decision. But I think sometimes you can't allow that. You cannot allow your players to make that final decision. You've got to hold on to your very best players. You've got to convince them, right, we need you for longer. We need you for another season or two until we really do get into the Champions League and keep ourselves in there. Until then, you're not going anywhere. That's what you do. I remember when Cristiano Ronaldo wanted to leave and go to Real Madrid, and it was just a slam dunk. It's going to happen. And Fergie came in, and what did he say? He said to Cristiano, "Look, you're not leaving. I'll let you go next season, but I need you this season. We need to win another title. We need to win this. We need to." And kept him, and we won more with him. And then, yes, they allowed him to leave. But I really feel like we do need to have someone talk to Bruno and say, look, yeah, we need you. We're talking about Casemiro right now. We're talking about even trying to keep Casemiro on for another year since he's given such a good performance this season. We're like, oh, look, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's saying, oh, maybe we should be contacting Casemiro and saying, give us another season. Because, yes, it is important. Hasib says, need to have a plan before selling someone like Bruno. Even last time, no plan, leave it in Bruno hands. Is incompetent. Yep, absolutely. I'm hearing he's going and the announcement will be made soon. Jim fucked everything up and the club's toxic now. Jim's piped up. Yeah, I think, look, that is no doubt. There's players who are probably sat in that dressing room thinking, we don't need this circus. We don't need to be playing for a club like this. There will be players in there in the back of their minds thinking, well, look, do you know what? This is just a shit show. This is an absolute shit show. And you want to have owners that are taking the club in the right direction. We as fans also, we can also say, look, we've got owners with the Glazers and now with Ratcliffe that haven't got a plan. All they care about is commercial revenue. All they care about is making money, cutting costs. And that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear that your owners are coming in and actually want to build on the success and want to invest more money into the club to make it better, not take money out. So yeah, look, it's worrying times if we're getting to this point where we could definitely see improvement in United, but then at the same time, if we start losing key players over the summer, we could kind of negate all that success that we've had this season. And of course, it all depends on Champions League. I keep saying it, Champions League is going to be massive. United ownership is reactive, not proactive. That's the problem. Yeah, great point there, Steph. The thing is, we've seen what they've done. The Glazers, let's leave them out for now, right? Okay, we know what the Glazers are like. We know they're shit. They've been shit for a long time, and they've not bothered even justifying their actions. They've just simply sat back and said, look, we're not even going to come forward and give an interview, right? Then we've got Jim Ratcliffe, who we all thought was coming in and he maybe actually knew something about football and maybe he was going to take us in the right direction, and we all genuinely thought he wanted the Glazers out. We all genuinely thought that he's going to buy out the Glazers the moment he gets the chance. But that's not happened. And that, for me, is the biggest alarm bell ever. Forget what he said last week. That's just shambles in its own right, but just leave that to the side. Even before what he came out with last week and put the club in disrepute, I think what he was like already when it came to not buying out the Glazers, cutting costs, cutting minor costs. I mean, if you were a really logical, good businessman and you knew, right, okay, I'm coming in, I need to sort this shit out in this club. What is the biggest problem at this club? I can tell you, I'll give you a bloody clue. It's the £40 million in interest payments that we pay each year. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Absolutely crazy. So, of course, the biggest problem is the Glazers. So you take them out of the equation. You buy them out. You clear the debt. Them are the biggest problems. You're literally scratching the surface when it comes to, cutting lunch money. Like, that's ridiculous. Absolute ridiculous. Let me see. Nish says, no serious manager are coming in now because of Jim. I said it before. We lose every game until the end of the season. I know you said that, man. You have said that, Nish. On hearing the Glazers are going insane about Jim as well. Well, look, they're concerned about their commercial revenues and stuff, aren't they? Bruno will go to Madrid for sure. I think if Madrid come in for him, he'll go. He will go. And Madrid are missing that type of player. They've not been able to replace the Kroos or the Modric. They haven't. And if I was sat there within the Real Madrid board looking over, I would be planning a move. I would be planning a move. A sensational move, but I would be planning that move. And if he gets an offer from Madrid, he is going. Absolutely. I don't know why there's so much United fans who are not seeing the bigger picture here. They're sitting there, they're thinking, Bruno's not leaving. Bruno's not leaving. I'm telling you, Bruno, there's a high chance of him leaving. Yes, the only thing that might convince him and drag him back in again and keep him here for another year or two could be Champions League football. Could be. That's still a big question mark. What team would Bruno fit? I mean, for me, personally, it's Real Madrid, Grace. I think he would fit into that team perfectly. He would. They need someone to feed the ball, to assist, to put them passes through to this forwards. They haven't got that link up. You see Real Madrid, and there is a complete divide between the defence, the midfield, and the strikers, the attacking players. They need that Modric in there, and he is essentially the perfect player to go into Real Madrid, and I can see that happening. Maybe not Barca. I think Barca have got an embarrassment of riches in the midfield. They've got very good players, and then also if you're looking across, you could argue PSG really don't need someone. These are the clubs that I think would definitely be a big option for Bruno. If they come in for him, he would not even have to think about it. He'll probably jump ship. And then there's Bayern Munich. Again, Bayern Munich could be an option, but I think it would, if the one that really would turn his head would be Real Madrid. We always we see players wanting to go there, and I think that I can see that happening. But yeah, it depends. We could sell Dalot. He's worth at least 250 mil. Grace, I love it. You had to get it in there, but I'll let you have that one. 250 if we can sell him. But do you know what? I was talking over the weekend. I was talking to someone who, again, you know the guy I was telling you about, who's a huge Dalot fan, right? I sat down with him yesterday, and I got talking to him, and he, again, obviously was talking about how amazing Dalot is, and I forgot to mention him that, I had a viewer who loves Dalot as well. But anyway, and he was telling me that Real Madrid are seriously looking at Dalot. And the reason why is because he was like, look, there's a huge shortage of good right backs in football right now, and that's why Dalot's stock has gone up. And he's saying, trust me, Dalot is worth a lot of money, and United might cash out on him, and you're going to regret it because you're going to watch Dalot go to another club like Real Madrid or anybody else, and he's going to cook for them, and you're going to be like, oh my God, we needed him. How come he wasn't playing like that for United? But Dalot's been playing well, so I'm not gonna criticize him. He's been playing well with Carrick. He's been playing really good. So apart from maybe one or two mistakes, but not major mistakes. I think he struggled against West Ham. Somerville was a massive test for him, and I think he did okay against him. I think the problem was against West Ham, we were too occupied keeping them away from our goal, and we forgot that we need to actually attack and score. And of course, I felt like we were missing that focal point in a striker against West Ham. Other clubs' owners back their managers and aren't always being talked about. It's a big factor for why we are failing, in my opinion. Yeah, I think, look, the problem is our ownership take up all the bloody press. They take up all the press. So when we're talking about ownership and what they're saying and everything, whereas you very rarely hear about Man City's owners and what they're doing, or Chelsea's owners and what he's coming out and saying, and same thing with Arsenal. You don't hear anything. I'm hearing multiple players are asking for moves after the Ratcliffe comments. I've not heard anything about multiple players asking for a move, but inevitably come the summer we could have a complete removal of quite a lot of players. Not a removal, but an exodus of kinds. Don't Bruno have a 50-50 release clause for Europe clubs? We won't even get that much from him unless he agrees to go to Saudi. I think there is some talk of that, Grace. And the other thing is that I think that's why in the summer there were some noises coming out that some of the members of the board wanted United to accept the offer from the Saudi League and for him to go out and be sold. Hence why they left the decision to Bruno, thinking that Bruno will read between the lines and say, yeah, actually the club don't want me, so I'm going to leave. But what happened was Ruben Amorim stepped in and he went off on a limb without obviously the backing of the board, and he turned around and said to him, I want you to stay. I need you here. As the manager, I need you here. Just give me one more year. And now that season's going to come to an end. In a couple of months, we're going to see the end of that season. There's going to be no Ruben Amorim. So who's going to sit down with Bruno Fernandes and convince him this time that to give us another season or two? That's my worry. Grace, has the pound depreciated that much? Hopefully, you're well, buddy. Oh, you're talking about Dallo there. He won't go to Saudi. He wants Champions League football. Madrid for peanuts, even if he has to leave on free in 2027. Look, I think you're right, Nish. I think he's after Champions League football. I think he wants to move to Spain. I think he wants to... he's made it clear. If anyone is in doubt, you just need to go back and read the transcript of the interview that he gave to, I think it was Canal, it was Canal Sport. I'm not quite sure, but it was a couple of months ago. I think October, November time, he gave this interview. It kind of made the news, but many people just overlooked it. No one really made a big hoo-ha about it. And I remember doing a show about it saying, look, this is bad news, because this guy's essentially saying, I'm going to leave. This is my last season. And that was before Ruben Amorim got the sack. So yeah, I'm worried. I am worried because right now he is our best player. I know Jim's in the house, so Jim's not a big fan of him, but I think even Jim has accepted. Like me, look, I've criticised Bruno heavily. I'm not one of those fans who's glazed over him. I've always held him to a high standard, not just because he's playing for Man United, but because he's the captain. And I've always said, for me, he's not a good captain. He's a brilliant player. He's really good for Man United, but in a captain's role, I don't think he's as good as maybe somebody else. A captain has to be measured, has to be calm under pressure. You don't want him to be losing his head. You want a captain to always be the one carrying the team and leading in the right example. And I just feel like Bruno is not that guy. I feel like he just loses his head. He gets really upset, really emotional, really quickly, and he's perfect as a player. If he was just playing without the captaincy, I think he'd be brilliant. But again, the captaincy, I don't know whether he really wanted the captaincy. I think it was kind of forced upon him because there was no one else willing to take the captaincy. But I think someone else would have been a better... I think, look, Harry Maguire had the captaincy before Bruno Fernandes. Now, if Harry Maguire was a regular first team player, I think he would have still had the captaincy. The problem was that Harry Maguire went through a really bad dip in form, and then that's why someone else had to be the captain. I'm hearing the vast majority of the team has completely checked out after Ratcliffe came out as a big hit. Guys, we're completely screwed until Jim goes. I promise you, none of the players are motivated to play under Ineos. I'm hearing Palmer won't even consider as until Jim has gone now. And 60 million for Bruno to Madrid is absolute peanuts. They definitely activate his clause. Yeah, look, that is the problem. Mark says Jim was correct. Learn the difference between legal and illegal. Well, Jim wasn't correct, Mark. Unfortunately, I mean, if you read the transcript and you can bring it up right now. The word illegal was not mentioned once, and that's why it caused such a outcry from all quarters of the British media and, of course, politics, everyone. And the wording, look, I'm not going to get into it today because we've got lots and lots to discuss, and we've kind of overcome that to some extent. Of course, it's going to still have its implications, and I agree with Nish. I feel like it's not going to be something that the players or the club's going to get over as quick as we think. It's going to ramble on, and it might even take Jim Ratcliffe having to resign from his position. It might take that. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. But the language he used and the manner in which he used it, and he doubled down after the interviewer questioned him. You could hear the surprise in the interviewer's voice. He went back and gave him an opportunity to kind of change the words he used, but he didn't. He just doubled down. And yeah, so that's why, look, it became an issue. And so you can't move away from that, unfortunately. Jim is volatile. He's volatile. The guy is volatile, whether you like it or not. He is a problem for United. And even the club itself coming out and putting out a tweet and a statement saying, we're inclusive and we're this and that and blah, blah, blah. That just tells you, Jim is, walking around going crazy, isn't he? Rick, welcome to the channel, mate. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're surviving out there in Canada. Hope you're doing well without no football. Mark, he's been talking about all immigrants. Yeah, Dalot is good for Real Madrid. Yeah, do you know what? Yeah, I mean, apparently there's talk about Trent coming back to Liverpool. Again, I'm not 100% on that. I don't know for 100% if that is true, but that's the rumours. The rumours are Trent might be leaving Real Madrid. But right now, the only problem with Real Madrid right now is because they haven't got a manager, a long-term manager in place either. So I think we might get lucky. We might get lucky if Real Madrid have got issues with their manager right now. They might not be able to go out there in the transfer market and bring anybody else. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, actually, he mentioned those on the dole. Yeah, he did mention those on the dole. He did. No, he wasn't. Look, he threw everyone under the bus. Let's be honest. He threw everyone under the bus. His words were, he clearly, I don't know whether he'd kind of used that phrase before, but he used the same thing. And yes, he mentioned everyone who's on benefits, but that in itself was controversial because Jim Ratcliffe has been taking handouts from the government left, right and centre. We've heard figures that Ineos have been taking hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money to run their companies. And yes, he's got the audacity to take his company and move it out of the UK so they don't have to pay corporation tax. And of course, he doesn't have to pay income tax because he's left. But anyway, look, I don't want to get into all that. We know what he did was wrong. What he said was wrong. If he had used the words controlled immigration, or if there should be controlled immigration into the country, I don't think anyone would have said anything. Everyone would have been like, yeah, okay, that's his opinion. But I think the words he chose and the way he doubled down was it was crazy. It was crazy. Jim spoke about uncontrolled immigration, not legal ones. Listen to the words. He didn't make a distinction, Rick. He didn't make a distinction. He was talking about everyone and benefits. He said 9 million. That includes everyone. Not going to hash out. Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're right, Nish. Rick. I think it's a discussion. I said it immediately the day after. I said, look, this is a minefield, right? This is an awful discussion to have because I don't want to be talking about politics. We're all about football here. We're all about Man United. Why can we not be celebrating the success United have had under Carrick? Why has this idiot even come out and said that? Whatever he said, whether you agree with it or not, you have to agree he's brought United bad press. Whether you agree with his statement or not, forget all that. He shouldn't have been voicing that opinion as a United owner. That's the other issue. I understand, Rick, the issue is that we're completely toxic until he leaves. Either way, I'm here to listen to the show, not argue with people like, look, that's it. That's it, Rick. I think that's how we've got to, how we've got it. Talented players are flighty. Yeah, they are. Look, I think that is the problem with having talented players. You've got to have someone who keeps them in check, because they're always looking for the next big project. They're always looking to win. And if they're not getting success at their current club, they will look elsewhere. That's the way footballers work. The talented players are hungry players. They want success and they want it at all costs. And they look around and think, right, okay, I'm the best. I'm carrying the team. I'm one of the best players here. Are the rest of the players doing what they're expected to do? And if they're not, then I'm not satisfied. And that's what Bruno Fernandes said in his interview. He said on the lines of, look, I know I give everything, but I'm paraphrasing here, by the way, so it's not exactly what he said because I can't remember the word to word what he said, but he did say something on the lines of, I see other players, young players, who are not committed to the club like I am. I see other players who don't give everything that they should be giving as a player to the club. They don't respect the badge. They don't play for the badge. And that's highly critical. And of course, that's what he's doing. That's what top players do. They look around and think, do I want to play in a team of players who don't give a crap about the badge? De Ligt would be a good captain. Good shout there, Rick. Good shout. Do you know what? I was trying to wrap my brains thinking who would be a good, solid captain, someone who gets into the first 11 consistently, someone who's calm, measured, relaxed, doesn't lose his head. I think De Ligt would be one. I think in the future it could be Lemons, but I think he doesn't. I prefer someone out on the outfield. Could be Leacher, could be again, because I'm not quite 100% sure that he's got the measured approach. Going forward, who else could it be? I can't think of anybody else, but yeah, De Ligt would be my choice as well if I could. You are calling a billionaire an idiot. Well, look, Mark, he's an absolute idiot for saying what he said. For what he said, I mean, you'd expect someone to come out and say. Someone in that position to be very measured with his words. Someone with that kind of position of power to know that whatever he says, every single word matters. Every word in the right context matters. And of course, he should and he ought to have known that it's going to have implications on Man United. And Man United is bigger than Sir Jim Ratcliffe. That's what he needs to understand. And someone needs to tell him that. Someone needs to tell him that. And it doesn't matter if he's a billionaire. Why is he more intelligent than the rest of the people out there? Why does his opinion matter more? It doesn't make any sense. For me, look, we have to treat everyone as the same. Everybody has to have the say if that is the case. But for me, he's in a position of complete responsibility, and he needed to choose his words very carefully, knowing that it'll impact the club. And that's the position. Unfortunately, whether we like it, or like I said, whether you agree with his comments or not, I don't have an issue with that. That's your personal opinion, and it's got nothing to do with football. Number one, it's got nothing to do with football. But what my concern is that he ought to have known that it's going to have an impact on United. That's my opinion. Mark, this is what the whole thing has completely divided fan base. I think the players won't be affected by it. Is insane. I think many things say very few of them, and then all of the people agree with him. A lot of people, you're saying, agree with him. Again, I wouldn't back that up. I think it's divided opinion. That's what's happened. A lot of people don't agree with him. I think a lot of people, I would say, are saying, look, he's brought the club into turmoil over the comments. I mean, we've had a huge issue over the last week or so, and the players, we've heard from reliable sources that they've been left surprised, disillusioned, whatever it is, with his comments. But look, I don't want to get into it again. We did a whole show on it like a couple of days ago when it first happened. You can go and check that out, and you can go and watch it. We can't rerun the same thing again and again, right? We can't do that. All our interests should align to one thing and one thing only. Everyone who's a Man United supporter, only one thing comes before everything else, and that is the success of the club and whether we're going in the right direction. We can all agree that the ownership have been absolute shambolic with the club so far. We've got lucky with Michael Carrick coming in. He's coming in and he's taken everything and he's settled everyone down. He's got the players cooking, the players that we were talking about and we were criticising left, right and centre, saying these guys are not good enough. And then suddenly the likes of even Dalot, Luke Shaw, everyone has started playing really, really well. And for me, that is massive. And the first thing I said immediately after the news broke about Jim Ratcliffe and everything, I said, why could we just not have a couple of weeks of happiness? Why could we just simply not have just given the credit to Michael Carrick and the players? That was my main go-to point. It wasn't anything else. It was just simply stop it. Why can't we just be happy? We've been through so much shit over the years, and we've just been through awful time with Ruben Amorim just giving us draw after draw, not succeeding, and then we've got Carrick and we're winning 4 in a row. We beat Man City, we beat Arsenal. When we beat them convincingly, by the way, it wasn't just a lucky win against Man City or Arsenal. We were the better team. And again, we just kind of dropped our level a little bit. I don't know whether it was just nerves or whether it was just that 5 wins in a row thing going on, but we just dropped our level against West Ham. I think we gave them too much respect, and that is why we kind of we kind of lost that impetus. But we go again. We didn't lose. So that, for me, that was important. For me, it's always important to keep the confidence of the players high and keep them going. So you can have your opinion, but someone else can have. Yeah, of course, Mark. Look, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not that. I don't know whether you've tuned in the first time or what. Yeah, but I'm not that kind of guy who's going to rob anyone of their opinion, whether it's controversial, whether it's right or wrong, whether I agree with it or not is another thing. But I'm not gonna force anyone to agree with my opinion, and that's fine. And look, but however, I do want to stick to football because that's what the show's all about. It's about football. I'm not here discussing politics and anything else that's going on around the world, because I'm sure there's plenty of other channels you could tune into and discuss that politics and what's going on around the world and global climate crisis or whatever it is. We're here talking about football, and I genuinely do like talking about football and talking about United and stuff. But again, I'm not gonna strip anyone from their opinion. So no. Look, it's not about getting upset with anybody. It's just everyone. I respect everyone's opinion. Everyone can have their say. Travis, I agree. We need to move on, but this doesn't end until Jim goes. Jim isn't going anywhere. Mark, don't get offended, bro. And then Anish says, Mark, you can have your opinion, but when you're chairman of Ineos, you can't say things that publicly affects the club. Yeah. Rick, if it wasn't part of United, he wouldn't care. I've never been offended in my life. Just saying what I see. Look around at the country. Look, there are. Look, again, there are genuine concerns, and I accept them. But that's out of the realm of Man United. That's what like I said before. For me, it was just. He's in a position where he is the part owner of Man United, and even the Glazers having to dress him down or have a go at him and talk to him, it just is laughable, isn't it? I mean, who would have thought a couple of years ago that we would get a part owner coming in that would make the bloody Glazers look good? And right now, there's lots of fans out there who have said that. They've said, look, bloody hell, we thought the Glazers were bad, right? Mark, you're not offended, but the players who are immigrants are. Yeah, look, I think everyone is gonna take it how they want to take it, right? That's the reality of whatever you say. Sometimes I'm sat here and I'll say something like Dalot shit or something, right? Or I'm having to go at Bruno Fernandes or having to go at somebody else. and everyone is going to take it differently. Some people will get very protective over players and say, I don't want that. How dare you say that about Kuna, for instance? I had a chap here. I was saying when Dogu got injured, and I was like, oh shit, Dogu's brilliant. And look, Kuna can step in, but I'm really upset that Dogu's injured because we were cooking with Dogu on that left wing. And I remember the chap coming on, and he had a complete meltdown about me saying that Kuna shouldn't be coming in to replace him, or I'm not happy with Kuna coming in and replacing Dogu. But that was my opinion. I was like, look, I don't want to change a winning team. We've got a formula that's working, and of course you'll be upset if something's not working and you're having to put somebody else in to make up for what's missing. So look, everyone's got their opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. And yes, of course, Mark, and of course, Nish, everyone. I'm not gonna strip that away from anybody. Everyone has their opinion, and Rick knows we're a chilled out show. We're not one of those who are gonna say, look, you can't say this and you can't say that. But obviously within reason, you've got to be respectful to one another. And none of you have been so far, so that's good. The thing is, we can't pretend this didn't happen. Yeah, of course, look, this is going to ramble on whether we like it or not, whether we sit here today and say it's not going to make a difference or not. It will. And of course, it will in terms of any manager coming in as well, because... And finishing off on the show, by the way, we've got obviously talk about Unai Emery, who's not now going to be considered by United. That sounds a bit not now going to be considered. But anyway, he's been ruled out by United. Apparently, that's the reports anyway. We're hearing that United have ruled out a move for Unai Emery, the Aston Villa manager, who is doing really well. He is very well respected, really highly regarded. What do you think of that? I mean, for me, it was a no-brainer. They're going to rule out anybody who's going to cost them money. Any manager that's going to, number one, demand new players, number one, is going to cost them to bring to the club. They're not going to choose that option. They're going to look for free options. So whoever's free, whoever's ready to join United and is going to cost them nothing, I think that's who they're going to go for. So I've said it from day one. I've said it, I think last show I said, look, Carrick is in the driving seat. I think Carrick is going to get the job. Unless something dramatically changes, unless he falls off and we completely start losing games, I think he's going to get the job. And if he doesn't get the job, I think then you're going to look at managers maybe not in the same league. I think, look, it's interesting how Tuchel, Enrique and Ancelotti all kind of got disregarded or went out of the picture in the same week. I said to you, they're Class A managers. They're the very best right now that are available, and they got ruled out immediately. Of course they would. And now we're looking at maybe the second tier managers. We're looking at, Unai Emery, Eddie Howe. We've got a few more knocking around. Glasner, maybe even, I think he'd be, tier C. But we've got them kind of managers. I can see Glasner possibly coming in. I can also see Eddie Howe maybe having a chance. And I dread to say it, but Southgate is still lingering there as well, so he could come in as well. So we've got them options, but I think if Carrick gets us into Champions League, we are going to get. We're gonna get it. We're gonna just give him the job. I think that's the easiest option for Ineos. They might. Dress it up like they're interviewing lots of managers and they're looking at different managers and different options, and then they've deliberated for hours and then they've come out with a decision that Carrick gets a job. But I don't feel like it's that difficult for him. I think they already know. I think deep down they already know that if Carrick gets Champions League, they're going to go with Carrick. If he doesn't, then they're probably going to be forced to look elsewhere and choose another manager. And the manager that I think is most likely after that, I think Glasner, De Zerbi, even though I'm not a huge fan of De Zerbi, I think De Zerbi might, but they might look at De Zerbi and think he's another, a bit of a jack in the box. He might be a difficult one to tame, might be a difficult one to keep in check, so they might not opt for him. I think even though De Zerbi is is high up there in the possible next manager as United. I don't think that it's going to be De Zerbi. I think it will be someone like, it's Carrick number one. And if it's not Carrick, and if we don't get the Champions League, I think it will be someone like Glasner. Or if Eddie Howe becomes available, I think it'll be Eddie Howe. Them are my options anyway. I'm going to do a separate show on this probably tomorrow and the manager options, because it's really, really interesting. There's lots of managers that are free right now or available or are being linked to United. But genuinely, who do you think it's going to be? Them. I think it's going to be Carrick and maybe someone else if not Carrick. But for me, I'd prefer just sticking with Carrick if he gets Champions League. I know some fans do not want Carrick, whether he qualifies for Champions League or not. Many fans are saying, well, look, he's an interim manager. Let's keep it as interim. Let's not drag this out and end things in a negative way. Carrick is not the kind of manager to take United into the new season. For me, I think you've got to give him a shot. If he gets Champions League football, I think you've got to then give him the chance. Of course you do. If we keep form and get Champions League football, it should be Carrick. Yeah, I think I agree. If we get Champions League football and Carrick doesn't get the job, it's going to go mental. Yeah. Look, I think that is the biggest concern I have as well. I think Ineos will know this. I think the board will know this. Wilcox, Brada, everybody will know that if Carrick gets Champions League football and we do not give him the job and go to another manager who comes in and completely screws things up, that's it. It's the end. It's the end of everything that we fans will completely have a meltdown. Fans will not accept that. And even those fans who are like, no, don't give Carrick the job, will come out saying, oh, how dare you, appoint somebody else. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a catch-22 situation for Ineos and the Glazers, whoever else is making the call on the new manager. It's going to, for me, I think the most safest option would be Carrick gets Champions League and they give it to him. If he doesn't get Champions League, then it opens up a whole new discussion about who should get the new job. And I think if he doesn't get Champions League football, I think if Eddie Howe gets the sack from Newcastle, I think they're going to go with Eddie Howe. That's my call. If he gets the sack from Newcastle. If Eddie Howe becomes available, mark my words, Man United will bring him in as the new manager of United. That's if Carrick doesn't get Champions League. But right now, I think if I was a betting man, I would say we're going to get Champions League. Of course we're going to get Champions League. We've got to be positive. We've got to look at the best scenario possible. Surely not. Surely we cannot let go of this great opportunity of being in the Champions League spots and letting go. Carrick should be the last ex-United player to be given the job. Rooney, not good enough as manager. Yeah, Rooney, look, I like Rooney. I love Rooney, actually. One of my favourite players at United. But as a manager, I just feel like he hasn't got that man management skill to kind of take the teams in. I don't think he's got the aura, if you know what I mean, as a manager. As a player, of course, he did. But as a manager, you've got to have a different skill set. And I think many players realise as soon as they go into management that shit, it's not easy. We saw Gary Neville completely flap it out in La Liga, right? That is, and you'd think, given his football knowledge and the way he talks and the way he comes across, you'd think that he'd make a good manager. But of course, that's not all what it takes. It takes a lot more than that. So yeah, we'll wait and see. I'll bring you, like I said, a proper show on this, and we'll go into a deep dive on all the managers available and who is ranked in the top 5 as the most likeliest to get the United job, the top job, because it's not an easy job. And look, we're looking at Carrick right now, and we're all glazing over Carrick, but we've got to also realise that he's not gone through a rough patch. What if we lose? And that's when you really find out whether you've got a top manager or you've got a manager who's not really going to cut the mustard. When you go through a rough patch and the manager can still keep the team going and come out in the press conferences and keep the positive vibes going. That is it, guys. I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. Rick, Mark, Anish, Jim, Stephanie, who else did we have as well? We had Stephanie, we had Grace, we had who else? Hasib and everybody else. And Asanas, want to say a huge thank you to everybody. Take care, and I'll be back tomorrow. If you're not already subscribed to the United Stream, make sure you hit that subscribe, and if you want to, you can hit that like button as well. Thank you.